So, someplace you would not expect people to be excited about Donald Trump, although I could have told you this from my experience campaigning for Bernie Sanders in Harlem, is the South Bronx, which is right across a very short bridge from Harlem. So Newsmax went out there, and yeah, I know it's Newsmax, but again, this does match my own experience that there is more support for Trump in these communities than you would expect. So we will go to the tape. This fella, I know you
President
have.
Trump and I had been speaking.
I know you have the impression there are no Republicans in New York, but there are. There are actually some very Republican areas, like where I come from in Queens. As I've mentioned, it wasn't when I was growing up, but it's very Republican now. Staten Island is very red. If you don't know, it's one of the 5 boroughs. So this guy, Gavin Wax, is the head of the Young Republicans out there in the Bronx. And here he is talking about he's trying to get Trump to do a rally there.
Trump and I had been speaking recently about, his prospects in New York City. There was a poll that came out that showed him within the single digits. So we talked a bit about that. I mentioned, the interviews you did on the street in the South Bronx, where there was a lot of support for President Trump. People were very excited about him. It was something that people hadn't really seen before. It was something new. It was something novel.
Free my son, Trump! Free my son, Trump!
He went and watched it after our gala. He shared an article commenting on your interviews, and I think it got him very excited. He kind of said, well, let's do a rally in the South Bronx. I said, sure, let's do it.
If President Trump came here to the South Bronx, would you attend the rally?
Of course, I would want to meet Trump. I want to shake his hand.
He's the only president that I see that can ever make America great again. He's capable of doing that.
I would love to go to a rally with Donald Trump come, because I'm a big Donald Trump supporter. And I will support him 100%.
Oh, yeah, definitely we're going to show him love. We're going to show him a lot of love. And, like they do in other states. We definitely need to see Trump here.
There's nothing but love for Donald Trump here in the South Bronx, the North Bronx, the East Bronx, and the West Bronx.
So you tell me...
We want Trump to come back. Please, bro. Biden, get out of here, bro.
I would come to the rally and support Trump. Because the Bronx need a change, and we need somebody that's really going to help this community.
I would definitely come to a Trump rally in the South Bronx. I like him.
You do?
Yes.
Yes, I will come to a rally if President Trump was to come to the Bronx, and I also would bring other people to come too and support him.
Would Joe Biden get a warm reception if he came to the Bronx?
No, he wouldn't have. And I'll make sure of that.
That is the best. All right, so I've mentioned this before. When I went out campaigning for Bernie Sanders in Harlem, I had a lot more pushback on people telling me they were for Trump than telling me they were for Hillary. The only people I had telling me I'm voting for Hillary were old ladies. A lot of young men, a lot of the bodegas in New York these days are mostly run by Muslims. They like Trump. So it was no surprise to me when you started to get numbers that indicated this, which shocked everybody because it's what I had seen on the ground. So actually, election results show support for Donald Trump grew in deep blue New York City. The presidential election results are finally certified in New York City, and while it's no surprise that Joe Biden dominated the vote in this Democratic bastion, the math also shows that Donald Trump grew his support here. This year, 22.6% of city ballots went to Trump on the Republican and conservative party lines. In 2016, 17.9% did. This year, 75.7% went to Biden on the Democratic and working families party lines. In 2016, 78.4% went to Hillary Clinton on the Democratic, working families, and women's equality party lines. Enthusiasm for Clinton 4 years ago was higher than it was for Biden this year, said City Councilman Joe Borelli, who is co-chair of the Trump campaign in New York. Quote, Donald Trump picked up more voters in different constituencies than we would expect. It wasn't just the embassy that moved to Jerusalem. I think a lot of Jews were moved from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party under Donald Trump. said Borelli. I mean, we're seeing that with Michael Rappaport, right? Also spokesman for the state GOP. Additionally, you see a lot of labor. You see a lot of daylight now between the members of labor organizations and where their leadership seems to go in terms of electoral politics. A New York One analysis shows that while Trump support stayed steady on Staten Island, which he won this year with 56.6%, it grew by a handful of points in each of the other 4 boroughs. The increase was steepest in the Bronx, 15.7% this year, and they're talking about 2020, versus 9.4% in 2016. Bronx Republican Party Chairman Michael Rendino said the party reached out beyond its traditional strongholds and found that working class parts of the borough rejected what he said was the Democrats' swing left. Quote, we've increased our voter registration 18% in 4 years, which is phenomenal. And that's just by voting to the people and speaking to them, Rendino said, adding of which demographics saw gains for Trump in the Bronx, Latino and Bengali communities. So that would surprise a lot of people from the outside. They get an impression of New York as being this uniformly blue city, and particularly, and this is something nationally, it shocked people that Trump, after all these years, 4 years of Trump's a racist, Trump's a racist, Trump's a racist, Trump's a racist, he performed better with people of color than any candidate since Nixon in 1960. And it just absolutely blew their minds. They never want to talk about this. So what are your thoughts, Tusker? Not being from the 5 boroughs here.
I mean, I think that New York is much like the rest of the country. I mean, really. You can't just have this homogenous idea. I mean, sure, there might be some stereotypes you can cling to or whatever, but this is how most of the country looks. You have these urban liberal centers, and within those, there are going to be pockets of people that don't agree with the Democratic Party line. You know, I mean, right. I think even here, like in Arkansas, in my capital city, it's not like the Democrats win, but it's not by a huge margin, and it's still deep blue. And I think that just represents most places in the country, you know. So I don't really think that it's all that unusual. It's sort of what I would just expect from any state, and I don't really think that New York is exceptional in that manner.
Well, I saw it close up. I saw it happen, and I've talked about this on the show, not for a while. When I was coming up in Queens, everybody was a Democrat. You could not find a Republican with a search party. Like, they just did not exist. I saw firsthand how that changed. And it really changed with the new Democrats. When you started to get the wired workers, the PMCs, basically, when they took over the Democratic Party, working class people have never reacted well to those kind of people. They've always felt their condescension. So they've never related to them culturally. And the Democratic Party did nothing but go out of its way to reinforce that cultural contempt with economic policies that destroyed people's lives. You know, my best friend who passed a few years ago, he was a union painter. And I saw that transformation in him. He had a good union job. And the city, and this is under Democrats, the city got rid of all the union painters and then offered them their jobs back as contract work, as non-union labor. And so, you know, a lot of people say, well, what are the Republicans going to do for them? Nothing. But very often you hate a false friend even more. And something that article got into a little bit. Yeah, I've been saying this forever. Part of the reason I get into these culture war things is because I'm from these neighborhoods. I understand how a lot of these things play to workers. And as somebody who wants health care for everybody, who wants decent wages for everybody, I understand that if you get bogged down in those things, or particularly if, as the PMC so often do, you lead with those things, that's it. You lost those people. And that has a lot to do with what you're seeing there, with their enthusiasm to have Donald Trump come to the South Bronx. Like, Trump gives a shit about the people in the South Bronx. I don't want to give the impression that he does, but
No. I mean, he's like we've kind of talked about before. Like, Trump likes the crowd. If he sees that there's a crowd there that's going to come out and see him, and he's going to be able to stick it in the liberal class's eye that people in the Bronx came out to support him, and that's what he's going to do. Doesn't mean that he's going to make something economic happen. Whatever. But I mean, I guess the thing that I think is interesting about that is the establishment still doesn't understand that you really can't fool the people. Like, you really can't. Now, whenever we talked about the new Democrats and Clinton coming in and all that other type of stuff, that was whenever the Democrats made the concerted effort to move away from unions as their voting base. And they started taking more Wall Street money, and their policies reflected that. And you had people that, because they were still connected to the Democratic Party, through like the civil rights movement, through unions, through all that other type of stuff, it's taken a little bit of time, because most of the time people are just going to stick with what they know. They go, oh, okay, that was a couple bad years for Democrats. They didn't do everything I wanted. I'm still going to hang on. But after all of the fundamental assaults that the Democratic Party has, made on the working class in the United States, they're not going to be able to hold on to them. You're talking about the things that Clinton did, deregulating Wall Street, which led to the 2008 financial crash. You're talking about people losing their homes. You're talking about millennials being, just much worse off than their parents and not really having much of the upward mobility, student loan debt going out the window, all of the wars, and just, spending all of our blood and treasure on bullshit. Yeah, people, you're not going to keep them. And as long as there's no one up there that's really offering a plan for the working class people that they can really get behind, then you're going to keep getting candidates like Trump that, they just like it because it makes liberals mad.
Well, that's it. And that's what our politics have come down to. You got two parties that are doing nothing for anybody, but you have one party that doesn't go out of its way to show absolute contempt for working people. And so at that point, that's enough. That's enough to swing a certain number of people over to them, even though really, I mean, what did Trump do for working people? Nothing. And he's very unlikely to do so in the future, but at least he's not spitting in their face. At least he goes up and does a funny Rodney Dangerfield act. You know, he seems like a man of the people. He certainly is not. But he's able to play himself that way.
If my president isn't able to give me any type of material gains, then I will take a comedy routine.
You'll take it. That's it.
Instead of watching Joe Biden amble around and we have to pretend that he is a functional person. I mean, that's a puppet show. I'd rather see a comedy routine as a working class person.
Please clap.